you got to be all in, you got to believe in the idea, and you got to be willing to fund it. And if you look at some of the most successful entrepreneurs, they'll talk about that they had every credit card maxed out at one time. They were just on the brink numerous times of, call it bankruptcy or financial failure. And that's why I say you got to be all in. Your wife, if you're married, got to be all in, or there's going to be some real tension created at the household.
Yeah.
And you've got to believe in what you're doing. And in any time, I don't have doubts, but anytime I may be having a bad day or something like that, all I have to do is, look at our product and touch it. And I'm like, wow, we really did this.
Hello, podcast. We got a treat for you today. We got Big Tom on this episode. Tom is the founder of Black Iron Strength. He is also a U.S. Army veteran. They create top-of-the-line antimicrobial copper choline strength equipment in the form of dumbbells. He was nice enough to bring one here today for me to be able to try out. It's 7.5 pounds, and so he probably saw on Instagram that I'm not really the strongest guy around. I train for aesthetics. So.
No, it's the funny. I always tell people I carry the small ones because if you're traveling, going through airports, it doesn't make sense to be carrying the heavy one around.
I feel a lot better now. Thank you for clarifying that. So they do barbells, they do cable attachments, they do much, much more. Everything they do is made in the USA. They service strength training equipment to the Kansas City Chiefs, to the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Navy SEALs, and many other NFL and NHL teams. They have more active U.S. patents in force than the rest of the free weight industry combined. A little backstory on how we met. I lost my job in Seattle due to COVID-19 several months ago, so I started SuperSetYourLife.com with my wife and with my partner to promote my coaching services and our own dumbbells and curl bars. Moved to the Portland metropolitan area where there was a better market for all this, and I called Tom asking for a job. I was like, hey, are you guys hiring? And he didn't have any way to hire me at the time, and so I didn't have any openings, and so he referred me to Bill at AER Fitness, and ever since then, Bill and I have had a great relationship, and they've been reselling a lot of our products. But I became fascinated with Black Iron Strength in the process. So we've been in touch ever since, and I reached out to Tom asking if he would be kind enough to share his experience and wisdom in starting up with entrepreneurs like my wife and I. Tom, welcome to the show.
No, thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here. And I am always thrilled to interact with what I view as the next generation of fitness professionals. I mean, there were people that invested time and energy in me when I was your age, helping me come up through the ranks. And so you're the next wave, as we're fading out, although I don't plan on fading out anytime soon. So we'll be doing a lot together.
Yeah. No, looking forward to it. I had to ask you, was watching the Kansas City Chiefs play in the Super Bowl like the coolest feeling ever, knowing that everybody that you see on the field was using your equipment?
Well, the heartbreak was the final score.
Oh, I mean, course.
Last year, when they won, it was just, a total thrill, knowing that the athletes on the field are all working out with your dumbbells. And we were hoping for a repeat this year. And, as I always say, being a former, football player myself, is you play the game and you just don't know who's going to win until the last snap. And unfortunately, it just wasn't the Chiefs' day that day. But no, we are so blessed to have them as a great customer, great strength coaching staff, and just thrilled to be part of that program.
Yeah. Wow. And it looks like he's probably going to catch up to Tom Brady's record, too, from what it looks like. Commentators were all saying, I mean, he's got a long way to go. He's got to win, 7 more Super Bowls to beat Brady's record? But
yeah, the challenge is, I mean, he certainly has the athleticism and the football IQ, but, having played the game, you're always one injury away, from a potential career ending situation. And, there have been plenty of quarterbacks that have been at the top of their game that, just it's that one injury that they just never come back, to being what they were. But he is Patrick's just an unbelievable, talent, just once in a generational, quarterback. And, I have never met him or anything, but, from what I hear, he is just a wonderful person, human being. So we're all pulling for him, that's for sure.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. What position did you play when you played?
Offensive center. Yeah.
Oh boy, I was a nose guard.
Yeah.
I was a bit bigger back then, though.
Yeah. Well, we all were, so.
And football is such a sport where you're prone to injuries, in a way that, like, in bodybuilding, that's why I like to do bodybuilding. Why I had to stop playing football and playing hockey, because bodybuilding, you pick up weights and you put them down. You pick them up and you put them down again. So if you get hurt doing that, then that's on you.
You're doing something wrong.
Yeah. So we are big-time Pittsburgh Penguins fans. Which of the products have the NHL teams seen the most value in?
Mostly the antimicrobial copper ones. The NHL had a mumps outbreak years ago, which put a lot of their, international superstar players that had not been vaccinated as little kids, on the sidelines during a time in the season where there were playoff implications. So our first client in the NHL with the antimicrobial copper were actually the LA Kings after they won the Stanley Cup. And then we've just had follow-on orders from the NHL, with the antimicrobial copper, because the copper handles are actively killing the germs 24/7, 365, including COVID-19. So, since last March, not just March 2020, it's not just the NHL, it's been the whole world. We've never done so many quotes, with our antimicrobial copper, products, because
I can imagine
people are looking for a solution that works, all the time. And keep in mind, our solution works without harsh chemicals. Was actually having a discussion the other day with one of the scientists, and he said that the CDC estimates since March 2020, people, especially in the United States, have been exposed to 400% more chemicals than they were pre-COVID because of all these cleaning situations, which, let's face it, that's not good for your health. I mean, as those chemicals are, being absorbed through your skin membrane, the beauty of the antimicrobial copper is there's no toxic after effect, from touching it. So it never quits working. It's working 24/7, 365.
Wow. And you've been using this technology since?
We discovered it in 2010 after reading a metallurgy article about it. The United States government was testing it in hospitals, and the U.S. government certainly has a vested interest in that with Medicare, Medicaid, and all the claims with hospital-acquired infections. And basically, I had the idea after reading this article that, gee, what if I could put this on, the free weight touch points, like dumbbell handles, barbell handles, kettlebell handles, attachment handles. Mm-hmm. And that sounded simple, but it took about 4 years of research and development. And at the same time, the U.S. government, to make the antimicrobial copper claim, if antimicrobial copper was a drug, it would have fallen under the FDA. But because it's a solid surface material, the U.S. government put it under the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, and we had to get registered in all 50 states plus the federal government with the EPA. So, launching in 2010, by the time we did all the R&D, applied for the U.S. patent on the handles, and got the EPA certifications, it took about 5 years.
Yeah.
To make all that happen to where we could start selling it, legally. So it was quite the process. And again, to be able to make that claim, you do have to have that EPA, registration, which we do.
Wow, that's incredible. 1992 was quite the big year for both of us. That is when Grace Premier Fitness and Wellness was started, and it's also the year that I was born. So.
Yeah. Which you're the same age as my oldest son. That was the age he was born. So 1992 was a great year. That was the year I took a early release package called an early retirement program out of the United States Army. That's when the Clinton administration was downsizing the military. It was referred to as the peace dividend. So I was a major in the Army. I was the director of instruction for the phys ed department at West Point. And they did a buyout. They did a math regression equation from 20 years back to when you were leaving. So I was a major in the Army, and I took the financial package and felt like I could create a living, on the civilian side of the fitness industry. And off we went in 1992 and moved, from the East Coast to the West Coast. And I had been stationed out here in the 80s at Fort Lewis, between Olympia and Tacoma, Washington. So my wife and I were familiar with the area and loved it out here, and thought this was the right place to start the business and raise a family. So that's how we ended up out here.
Yeah, this is a beautiful place to raise a family. We've only been here for a handful of months now, and we're thinking this would be a midway point between here and Los Angeles, which is where like the ultimate market would be for the fitness industry, and me doing stand-up comedy too. There's plenty of market for that. But after all the changes that have been happening in the California government, there's people that are leaving in the droves that are small businesses doing exactly what I'm doing. They're going to Texas and they're going everywhere else. And so we're like, I think we're just going to stay here for a while. No, this is nice. We love the Vancouver area.
Yeah, the challenge, and we looked at the whole West Coast back in 1992, but the most affordable city on the I-5 corridor was the Portland, Oregon, Vancouver, Washington market. And I had to be near an airport that I could get, in and out of very quickly, because, I'm doing trade shows, I'm visiting clients. Now, that hadn't happened since March 2020, but, we're about 25 minutes from the Portland airport. So that's worked out really well for us.
Yeah, I think it's about a 15-minute drive for us. So in 2001, when Black Iron Strength began, quote, no one in the industry thought it would survive. So these people, were they competitors, or were they well-meaning friends that were just literally concerned about you guys?
Well, all of the above. Starting a business from scratch, is a daunting experience. We did not take any outside investment or anything like that. We did it out of our own personal funding, and to create a company where we made the decision to go made in the USA, when at that time period everybody was outsourcing and going overseas. But In the dumbbell barbell category, everybody was going to the rubber, going to the urethane. And from talking to coaches, they weren't crazy about that. The rubber generally has a smell because it's a petroleum-based product. The higher end rubber, you can minimize that. And the urethane certainly holds up well, but the challenge with rubber and urethane, especially after about 75 pounds, is it just starts getting wider and wider and wider and wider into the heavier weights. So it's much tougher to balance and control, and it's much tougher for the spotter to spot the really long dumbbells. And the beauty of solid steel is you can keep the package much tighter. And it's the old joke when we were kids of what weighs more, a pound of lead or a pound of feathers. But I mean, they both weigh the same, but the pound of feathers takes up a lot more volume than the pound of lead. And it's the same thing with the dumbbells. When you buy a solid steel dumbbell, especially in the larger weights, it's a much tighter package. It can be 30 to 40%, narrower from end to end. And when you're lifting and when you're the spotter, that really means something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've kind of gone the opposite direction. It's funny that you mentioned that. The steel that's a little bit higher density than iron. Am I correct?
It depends on. You have to look at the grade of everything. I mean, we use a very hard, solid steel, product, is the spec. And every now and then somebody will ask me for the spec. So if they contacted me by email or whatever, I can certainly get them that information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our dumbbells with the skull have a bit more. Our appeal is more aesthetic than it is functionality, and so the bigger skulls is something that we were trying to make them smaller. We were trying to make them shorter, and people were like, these kind of look cooler, like on Instagram and everything. I was like, well, great, we'll just keep them.
Well, and you have a novelty. You have a novelty item that people like because it has a certain look to it. Ours isn't a novelty item; it's a functional. Item. So that's why getting the package as tight as we can, really means something to us.
Helps with shipping and stuff too.
Well, keep in mind the shipping is based on generally the weight and the size of the pallets. Mm-hmm. So, it's still going to fit on the normal pallets. So, the weight's the weight.
Yeah. So everything that you have is made in the USA, which I thought was pretty fascinating because I'm looking at everything that I have in my gym here, and either I made it, so it's obviously made in the USA, or it's something that I bought that was made overseas.
Right.
Even the highest quality stuff that I have, most of it is not made in the USA, which from all the research that I've done, and with us looking at what our next manufacturing process for our equipment is going to look like, we've very much come to realize that there is way more profit overseas than there is in the United States.
That's for sure.
Why has that been so important and something that you guys have stuck to, keeping everything made in the USA?
Well, because we sell direct, I don't have to have these huge dealer margins in there to get people to get on board to sell our product. We sell, to everybody through the company, and, our size is still, able to handle that, even though the volume picks up each year. But, we felt like quality control, being a former U.S. Army military officer, I call it old-fashioned, but I believe, made in the USA counts for something.
Yeah.
And, the employees at the factory are highly skilled. The equipment's the best in the world that our products are made on. And, what comes out of that factory, the employees are, super proud of. So, For me, it really means something. And yes, we could make more money going overseas. I don't think it would be the same quality, and I don't think we would have as much capability with customization. By having it made in the USA, we have 6 different handle choices, on our dumbbells, on our barbells. To get that type of customization, you've got to have a lot of control over that factory, to be able to do that.
Yeah, and to be able to go sit down and look somebody in the eyes and have a conversation with them and come away with a friend and with hopefully a mutual understanding to where you want to succeed because you're the business owner, but you get the impression that hopefully they're not going to put you in a bad situation either, to where it would hurt your business, because ultimately if it hurts your business, it hurts their business, and it's a lose-lose. But a lot of times if you're importing something from overseas, then they said they have a 10,000 unit minimum order quantity, so if they sell it, and that's correct. That's all I care about. I'm not trying to demonize any demographic in particular or anything, but that's what I've read, and that's what I've come to learn from asking around. So no, doing business with somebody down the road is much more refreshing and relaxing than somebody that there's, first of all, a language barrier, and second of all, somebody that you just don't know.
Well, when people buy our product, I always say they're making an investment, into the highest end. I mean, we're the Rolls Royce, Mercedes of the industry. We do have a high price point because of, all the quality we have out of our factory. But what I always tell people, and I'm humorous about it, is you're only going to have to buy it one time. And with the current COVID-19 situation and how much it's disrupted, the fitness industry, granted, I'm biased, but I don't know why anybody would not buy, our antimicrobial copper product with what they've been through, with COVID-19. Mm-hmm. So, again, that's coming from me, the owner and founder of Black Iron. But, I just look at that data out there and I see the devastation it's done to the industry, and people want to know when they're coming back that they're going to be safe and healthy. This is a good way to let them know. And we do have clients, even during this pandemic, that are investing, in these products to make sure their clients know we're doing everything we can to keep you healthy and safe. We have a tagline, trademark of "Get fit, not sick." I mean, it doesn't make sense to go into the gym, have a great workout, and you picked up something, in the gym, where it's a cold, the flu, or God forbid, COVID-19. And, that's why, these surfaces with the antimicrobial copper are so important.
Yeah. And at the risk of sounding perhaps a little cliche, when it comes to your own physical health, it's never somewhere that you want to cut corners with, whether it's your diet, whether it's your training, the equipment that you're using, any of it.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. When Black Iron Strength interviewed strength professionals in the midst of all the large manufacturers that were going overseas and importing instead of domestic manufacturing, did you see an opportunity to fill demand for higher quality products that could be made overseas? Is that
with the collagen and proteins, they were very excited about a USA company that was doing things geared to them. We felt like it might take a long time for the gym owners to come around to us, because we're a top-down, marketing product that we build for the high end of the market, for the collagen and proteins.
Yeah.
But we're great for everybody else. So now we're starting to get the gym owners, the boutique one-on-one fitness centers. What we're getting are the small operators that want to be able to compete with the big box or the big chain facilities because they don't think they're willing to make the investment, in the high-end products. They like a lower price point item. So we always tell people, hey, this is really a good way to compete against your local competition because chances are they're not going to come around and buy this.
Yeah.
So it gives you a difference, between you and your competition. I mean, it doesn't make sense if you get a big box franchise coming in to compete against you. It doesn't make sense if you have the same equipment as they have. You've got to have things that differentiate yourself from them, the competition.
Yeah, that's very well said. Just to be honest too, does it just feel good, like in your heart, knowing that everything's made in the USA and that you're supporting?
Well, it does. I mean, we walk the walk. We're talking. I mean, when I'm at a trade show and a lot of our competitors, bring their wares in that are made, overseas, and I don't know if you caught that one of the first executive actions that the new President Biden signed was the Made in America executive order. I mean, he is actually going all in on this Made in America, with government agencies and things like that. So, I always say, we walk the walk we're talking, about being made in America.
Yeah. Yeah, you look at one of our favorite TV shows is Shark Tank. It's like the only TV show that we watch, that and The Mandalorian.
Right.
Which is an amazing season, by the way. I'm so excited for the Boba Fett series. Oh man, it's going to be amazing. But everybody that goes on Shark Tank, when they say that they're made in the USA, they get like basically a standing ovation from the sharks. And,
yeah.
So one more thing on your self-funded, and so you haven't you haven't borrowed money at all to get to where you're at?
No, I mean, if we did borrow money, we borrowed it from ourselves.
Wow.
We've used the house.
That's like unheard of today.
Yeah, it's hard.
Not trying to get too personal with your finances and how you built your business, but that's just fascinating to me.
Yeah, I mean, what we've made, and we've been successful. We've put it right back in.
Yeah.
And we are constantly innovating. We currently have 15 U.S. patents that have been awarded, with 2 more, pending.
Yeah.
So, we're not sitting back and rolling in the profits and just, living this life of luxury. I mean, we're actually always looking at how can we be better, and is there a demand for something that we can come out with. Now, the demand for the new R&D has been extremely difficult during COVID because everybody, not just our factory, all the factories are so far behind, and the engineers are working so hard to get caught back up that we've just had to put the R&D effort on hold. Mm-hmm. I mean, we actually have a couple ideas, things we want to work on in the future, but we just have got to let there become some type of new normal, where we get caught back up and get back to our normal, lead times that we had pre-COVID. I mean, right now we're just trying to get stuff out the door.
Yeah. Wow. I bet it's nice doing business in the United States too, knowing that your patents are actually going to be respected, because it's definitely not the case when you go to China.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the one thing you have in the USA to keep people honest.
Yeah.
From not stealing your technology. And, it's amazing of the things we have not been able to patent, of the things, years later, we see people trying to copy us. on. But we know we were the first, so we, although we don't like it, we're flattered that they thought our idea was good enough that they're making a run at a copy. But the things they can't copy are the things we have the patents on.
Yeah. So those patents, I'm assuming those are all utility patents?
No, you always start trying to get a utility. It's about half and half for utility, half for design. But, sometimes the patent office will just not award you a utility because somebody before you had a similar idea. I mean, to get the utility, you have to prove you were absolutely first with the concept, and then you're getting the design covered too. So the utility covers the concept and the design, but those are much harder to get, and they're a lot more expensive, with the utility.
Yeah, and if you don't word one thing exactly the way it's supposed to be worded, then you're getting a letter in the mail like 2 months later, and you're like, really?
Well, that's why you got to have good intellectual property attorneys.
Yeah, I don't have one of those yet, so I've been writing all my own stuff.
Yeah.
Spending days on the phone with these guys, but they're helpful at the USPTO.
Sure.
That's what they're there for. So this Germ-Buster technology. Germ-Buster technology. My bad. That is the anti-microbial
copper.
Copper. Okay, this is something that's been used in rehab facilities. It's been used in a lot more than just the industries that we've been discussing so far.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to move on to the next subject. That was just a statement.
Well, Germ-Buster is a registered trademark, that we own, and basically we have two registered trademarks that we deal with the antimicrobial copper, Germ-Buster, and then Clean, CU, which on the periodic table, is the designation for copper. So CULEAN, Clean. So because basically Germ-Buster and Clean, just reflect what antimicrobial copper does to protect people.
Yeah. Okay. The cable attachments at the gym, I hate like all the cable attachments that I use at any gym because they're cheap. You can tell that they're inexpensive and they're basic. So that's why I have pretty much all my own cable attachments that I ever use that I bring to the gym.
Right.
They help with mobility on shoulder and tricep exercises. So have you experienced this, and has this contributed to your inspiration to see that gap in the marketplace? I can make something better than that.
Oh yeah, there's a huge gap, on attachments, and most of the attachments come with the units that the gyms, order. They're all made overseas. They're hard plastic. They're rubber.
It's just like cheap metal.
Cheap neoprene.
It's like when you go to, not to be disrespectful, like when you go to Harbor Freight to buy a tool that's made out of metal. Like when you look at the metal and you touch it, you're like, man, this is this is not the same metal as when you go to Ace Hardware or something, or something.
Correct.
A little bit better.
Yeah, and we, again, take it from the founder and the owner. I'm biased, but we really do make the best attachments, in the world for what we make.
This is not soft metal. I'm looking
no,
at this.
No, it's a very hard metal. And like I say, you're only going to have to buy it, one time. And our attachments have, incredible knurling on them. They rotate.
This is not going to fall out of my hand.
No.
It's comfortable too.
No.
And it's really comfortable.
But yeah, we actually, especially during COVID, we get quite a few orders for our attachments for people's, high-end home gyms, and they're definitely going with the antimicrobial copper.
Yeah, it's so amazing that you had this technology before the pandemic happened. I mean, it just like it just rolled right into your business. I get upset here and there, like. Things that used to be so simple, like to go to the store and get milk, and it's like now with kids and everything in masks, it's like a lot more of a chore to go do what before was like a very a very simple task, but I can't get mad at it either because I'm like, well, that's the only reason that, we're doing what we love every day. And
well, we started telling people in our industry about the antimicrobial copper years ago. And I mean, some of them, and I'm talking some really smart people in our industry, they laughed, they thought we were nuts. But some of those people now with COVID are all of a sudden coming around. And, if you've ever read the business book, The Tipping Point by Gladwell, we know that COVID-19 will be the tipping point, for antimicrobial copper. And, Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, for years has been warning, society about a pandemic, being around the corner, and he was absolutely correct. I mean, he spoke, I believe it was back in 2017 at the Munich Security Summit, about how ill-prepared the world was for a pandemic, and lo and behold, COVID-19 appeared. But we know that now we're on people's radar because of COVID-19, and if they're not buying it now, we know that we're in their future plans.
Yeah. We can edit this out if we need to too, but the book Tipping Point, I'm pretty sure I saw that at the Christian store, like on the End Times Prophecy shelf. Is that like a different, it's not a...
It's usually in the business section, and it's called The Tipping Point by Gladwell, and it's a bestseller, in the business community.
Gotcha. Okay. Common theme that I see with all your products is that they seem to be geared to specific niche customers, but that can universally be used by everyone. So if this is correct, have you found this market approach of specializing in a niche, but not alienating yourself from everyone else to give you the best of both worlds, in a sense?
Well, again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. It's a top-down approach. And, it's no different than a high-end vehicle, like a top brand Mercedes is not necessarily just sold to the wealthiest people around the world, that there are other people that might be, well off, but they're willing to make the investment for the really high-end product because they know it's going to last longer and it's going to have a higher resale value to it. So our top down, if we know that the college and pro teams love it, we know that the average user's going to love it. And I mean, you work out all the time. Don't you want access to what the college and pros are using? I mean, wouldn't you love to go in the gym and have the same equipment that they have access to?
Yeah.
And, that's our whole approach is, hey, you too can have this.
Yeah.
I mean, we have financing, programs available, although that's gotten really tight during COVID. You don't have many financial institutions that have wanted to loan money for fitness equipment or restaurant equipment since COVID-19, but that's loosening up again. But, we work with people to make sure that they can get our equipment.
Yeah, that's awesome. As a fitness professional in the manufacturing business, you, of all people, know what a superset is. It's when you pair an exercise with an opposing exercise that they seem like they're unrelated, but they improve the results of each other. Classic example is Arnold Schwarzenegger, bench press and then chin-ups right after it. He'd go back and forth, and then by the end of his workout, he's benching more and doing more reps on his chin-ups than he'd be if he was just doing just one of those exercises. So have you found, so with that analogy in mind, have you found your athletic background and your training as a center on the football field to give you foundational principles to be able to apply into business and to life and everything else after that?
Well, I think the biggest thing was the military, experience. I was in special operations. I was a Green Beret detachment commander, and, we were on our own, a lot of times in foreign countries without support. And, what you learn from the U.S. military and from going through elite training is you learn how to take risk. You learn how to be sensible, in planning things. And I think you really learn to overcome fear and manage it correctly. I mean, fear can be a good thing to keep you in check, but you can't let it stop you from moving forward.
Yeah.
So for me, the military experience was the most valuable of all, where a lot of that transferred in, to starting a business.
Yeah. I'm gonna throw some water on this mic. I think it's on fire. If you could offer one piece of advice to young entrepreneurs today, like myself, at a time where many businesses are doubtful to succeed, like Black Iron apparently was in 2001, what would that advice be?
You got to be all in. And, I get a lot of people, like you, Colt, that will call and they have an idea, and there's two kinds of people. One has the idea and they want everybody else to invest in their idea where they have almost zero risk, but they want most of the reward. It ain't going to happen like that. You got to be all in, you got to believe in the idea, and you got to be willing to fund it. And if you look at some of the most successful entrepreneurs, they'll talk about that they had every credit card maxed out at one time. They were just on the brink numerous times of, call it bankruptcy or financial failure. And that's why I say you got to be all in. Your wife, if you're married, got to be all in, or there's going to be some real tension created at the household.
Yeah.
And you've got to believe in what you're doing. And in any time, I don't have doubts, but anytime I may be having a bad day or something like that, all I have to do is, look at our product and touch it. And I'm like, wow, we really did this.
Yeah.
We really pulled this off. And lo and behold, a couple hours later or the next day, somebody will call and want to place an order. So you just have to do it. And, I'll refer to Nike. And if you've never read Phil Knight's book on Nike, my gosh, what he went through to make that company a success. I certainly have not had the trials and tribulations he had, but it goes back to their slogan of just do it. I'm saying you got to be all in. It's the same as Nike, like, hey, just do it.
Yeah.
And, so that's my best advice. And sometimes the entrepreneurs I'm talking to realize they may have to put their dream on hold for maybe a year or two to get more financial assets built up. And but if they stick to it, I've seen some people that have asked me for advice that have been successful. So just be all in and believe in yourself, just like you're doing right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks. No, I was taking notes on that, and I think what I'm really excited about with this interview too is just going back and listening to it personally. I appreciate that. Taking notes on it again, and I can't thank you enough for your time and for what you've shared with me on this episode. But right now I just want to apply everything that you've said, and hopefully when I'm 65 years old and I'll be sitting across the microphone with somebody and God willing, sharing a lot of these same principles. So,
well, and if, what I'd like to leave this interview with is, I always tell people, hey, we are very approachable. I still answer my own phone if I'm there, although a lot of it goes on voicemail because I'm on the other line, and we still answer our emails. So, please call me. You could go to the blackironstrength.com website, and we have a contact form, and our phone numbers are there, and my email's there. But if you have questions, and even if you have a question and you don't think you're ordering, that's fine. I mean, we have people that have contacted us 3 and 4 years ago that just now, are ordering something, and I don't care if it's only a single attachment. We want the personal touch of getting to know you, and anybody we can help answer questions on, please give us a shout.
Yeah. And they can be found on Instagram too at Black Iron Strength. And you guys are...
It's Black Iron Fit.
Oh, sorry, Black Iron Fit.
Yeah.
You guys are very active on there. And so...
Yeah, and I give my wife credit for all that. She has become the social media queen, and she started. I am just in awe of her because she started not knowing anything about social media, and then she works with a social media professional in town once a week. But she's getting very good at it. So yeah, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and you'll see what we're doing.
Yeah. And just last thing too is that we find that particularly inspirational about you and your wife too, is that you do this together. And my wife and I work together every day. So
well, she's my right, hand, and she does all the books and helps with all the admin, and she's been the rock, of the company, and she's getting very good at it. So yeah, I really appreciate her contributions.
Weonderful. Well, Tom, it's been an absolute pleasure. And
thank you.
Yeah. Follow up with you in a year after I've applied some of this, and we talk again sometime.
Yeah. No, thank you. So appreciate that, Colt, and good luck.
Hey, podcast. Thank you so much for joining us for this entire episode. If you found this entertaining or if you found it helpful, we ask if you would please share this and help spread the word. To make sure that you don't miss future weekly episodes, we have a new episode every Saturday morning. You can subscribe to the podcast, and it would mean the world to us if you would leave us a rating or a review on iTunes or whatever platform that you're listening on. And if you're listening to this audio, remember that you can watch the video on YouTube. We are not on Patreon or any other service for donations. This content is our gift to you. If you would like to support the show, we do invite you to our website, SUPERSETYOURLIFE.com, where you will find our retail pages for our very own Skullbellz workout equipment line, hats, t-shirts, coaching services, and my stand-up comedy booking information. On the website, you will also find the link to subscribe to our weekly newsletter to be informed of new product announcements, sales, and all information to be up to date on what is going on. Finally, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at SupersetYourLife.com. Thanks again. God bless. Also, the audio is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast, Pocket Cast, and RadioPublic. Probably a couple other ones that I don't even know about. Thanks a lot.